My argument that I will be defending is that by strengthening our understanding of animal cognition, we can enhance our ability to communicate effectively with animals. To begin, mental cognition can be understood as the processing of information being received through experiences, thoughts, and our senses. We're able to use mental cognition on a daily basis for many different abilities and situations. We're able to use mental cognition to understand situations. For example, situations as simple as understanding that someone's walking in a certain direction, and or even more simply, understanding that you're in a situation. For example, creature or state consciousness. We can also use cognition to access our skills that we have attained throughout our life, like speaking, listening, using our limbs to do different things like ride a bicycle or make an egg. Mental cognition is also utilized to access memories of past events, to be able to make references about what has happened, is happening, or might happen in the future, with the use of similar events happening previously. Mental cognition is used for reasoning on a daily basis to be able to understand and respond adequately to the situation at hand. It also helps us create new ideas, like the use of our imagination in different settings and or grow previously established ideas to better understand what is happening, has happened, or will go on in the future. For example, when we're able to grow our understanding of gravity by seeing how fast it takes for a pen to hit the ground when we drop it. And it is also utilized to carry out problem solving and decision making processes, like figuring out how to get a zipper unstuck or deciding how to complete a presentation. On the other hand, animal mental cognition can be seen as almost a mirror to mental cognition, but more of a biological based with more animal aspects to it. Animals are able to utilize mental cognition to understand situations as well. For example, to also understand when and how something is walking and to understand what is happening around them in the most basic sense. They are also able to make use of mental cognition in order to make use of different skills learned like communication, being able to climb things, being able to swim well, or fly well. They're also able to use it to access memories and make references to decide how they should react in an appropriate manner for a certain situation. They're able to use their cognition for reasoning as to why they may need to take another route or approach to have a more appealing outcome in a situation, and they're able to have new ideas, like the imagination of a new area to live or hunt in, and they can also grow their previous understanding of ideas to make them more solidified and better understood. They finally are also able to make use of mental cognition in order to carry out decision making when figuring out how to react or what to do when a certain situation arises and or makes use of problem solving techniques to access food and get out of tough situations. When it comes to comparing animal cognition and human cognition, we're able to see a fair amount of similarities and differences. When looking at the side of animal cognition, we're able to see that the theories and ideas in regards to animal cognition are often more simple and supposedly more easily understood with its more basic functioning ideas. This can often be attributed to the idea that we as humans have a more complex way of thinking and functioning, which is more complex and in depth rather than simple and basic to understand and explain. Also, on the side of animal cognition, it can be seen as not having as many ties to the evolution of today's world because new findings and ideas are often based on the human perception of what is happening and what has gone on throughout time. This more human perception approach is what is seen on the side of human cognition, with more computer science based approaches that do not ground themselves in concepts and patterns of biology and natural actions and reactions. These two types of cognitions can be seen as being similar in a lot of ways mentioned on the previous slides. They both are making use of perceptions in order to properly understand what is happening. They make use of memories and skills to better adapt to situation. Like mentioned, they both use decision-making and problem-solving methods to work around situations. And finally, I consider one of the most crucial factors of cognition that they both have is the ability of communication acquisition of their own and integrated types. Why is there a benefit to use animal cognition and human cognition in an overlapping manner? To begin, with a stronger understanding of animal cognition and how evolutionary continuity can be seen throughout time, causing a gradual change and a link of cognitive and behavioral traits, we're able to understand better how our cognition is the same as animal, but is just on a deeper and more thought-out basis, and we use more complex methods that we've developed over time. We can evolve current ideas with the help of a deeper knowledge on animal cognition in order to further solidify how we came to be the way that we are today and what we need to do in the future years to preserve all life rather than just the human species. And finally, we can strengthen current methods of cognitive measures by understanding the impact of those methods on animal cognition and perception, and how those can be compared to the impact upon human cognition and perception. What might we need to do in order to benefit from an understanding of animal cognition? First, the implementation of modifications to current methods. We can better understand the animal species when it comes to tests and experiments that deal with the understanding of how subjects interact with and react to the world around them. With consideration of different cognitive methods, including those that are based on animal cognition, and applying that to humans, we can then see the overlap between the differing results, like that seen when human cognitive tests are applied to animals. And finally, with more historical insight on the matter, we can better work with the animal species and their evolution as much as we work to understand the human species and our evolution across time. But why might a deep understanding of animal cognition not be beneficial to us and animals? Some main issues when it comes to trying to learn how to communicate effectively with animals and understand animal cognition at all were highlighted throughout Chapter 15 of our textbook reading on animal cognition. This chapter highlighted some very compelling and well-thought-out issues when it comes to the attempt to merge the methods of human and animal cognition. Anthropodenial is one of the ideas discussed in the reading as being an issue in regards to seeing convergence between animal and human cognition. Anthropodenial is the denial of anthropomorphism, the idea that there are human-like characteristics within non-human animals. Anthropodenial comes from the primatologist de Waal, who addresses a tendency to deny the ability for animals and humans to have similar characteristics and ways of functioning. The next possible issue is the idea of anthropocentrism. This is the idea that we as humans are the highest functioning entities, thus meaning that our methods of functioning and living are above those of non-human animals. This leads to the inability to make use of human cognition tests for animals because their cognition is not like ours, and we would not be able to communicate what we're trying to communicate with them on the level that they needed it. Next, the idea of Occam's razor, or the principle of simplicity, can be understood in the sense as supporting the idea that human cognition methods cannot be used to better communicate with the animals because it is simply too complicated to try and mix around or dumb down methods and change them in order to understand beings we already have a good enough understanding of. Occamism opts to take the simplest and most easily explained route, and using what we already know and can explain from a first-person point of view is what seems to be the easiest to do, and that is what we cannot do with trying to look at animal cognition. Finally, how can we really know that these animals are performing real cognition in a parallel manner, or if their actions are just instinct-based? There's been a long debate on if animals have the ability to reason, have cognition, basically be able to utilize the prefrontal cortex in the same ways that we humans do. We are unable to truly understand if animals are doing real cognition, reasoning, or any of those abilities simply because we are not able and cannot get that first-person view. We may be able to find some way in the future to, but at this time there is no way to know if they are truly doing what we call real cognition. But being able to understand the animal species is crucial for many factors when it comes to the expansion of the mind, our abilities, and the world around us. With a better understanding of animal cognition, we're able to expand our knowledge of what we have evolved from and how we have evolved from animal species, having abilities and physical systems that are like to one another but have become refined to specialize in different activities like walking and talking for people or flying and foraging for birds. With a better understanding of animal cognition, we can also better understand behaviors of animals and ourselves in comparison to each other, because with the idea of slowing down and using mental cognition measures in a more simply drawn out and leaning more towards a biological rather than a scientific approach when it comes to understanding the actions and reactions of animals, then we can build a better understanding of what it is we have in common with animals when it comes to perceptions and cognitions, and we can use that to learn what things we need to do to communicate effectively with animals. We can also gain an increase in ability to help the animal species with a better understanding of what it is they need in order to flourish in ways that we humans do, but not in the same ways that we do. This could also in turn come back to help the human species with the ability to work with and utilize the assistance of animals and sometimes receive nice gestures from those animals. For example, when people take care of and learn the ways of crows or squirrels, those animals can often bring back gifts in return or help protect the area you are living at and supplying them care and food from. Finally, we're able to use a deeper understanding of animal cognition to compare and contrast cognitive principles between people and animals to better understand what ways are the most beneficial and effective to communicate with animals. In conclusion, by strengthening our understanding of animal cognition, we can enhance our ability to communicate effectively with animals by being able to know when to act a certain way, how to act in that way, knowing what a certain action may represent, and knowing what response is the most beneficial and how to carry out that response.